Hollywood Actor Podcast with Kevin Scott Allen, Part 2.
That is so important, and I don't think that can be overstated or said enough. Training is a doorway to the first steps on that long journey.
And it's not only a doorway. I think if you understand that, then training becomes a part of your whole life. I remember many years ago, I met an opera singer. Beverly Sills was very, very well known. And she was talking to a class, and she had said, as much as I travel, as much as I sing, and this is, I think, when she was coming down from, but at one point she was probably the most famous opera singer in the world. And she said, I still study with my coach every single chance I get. And I was thinking, wow, if somebody at the height of their career still studies, maybe that means as an artist, you always have to still keep learning and studying. You can never just sit back and say, well, I know everything already. And a lot of actors I find in California, because the nature of film and TV is, anybody, the gardener could walk into an audition one day and just happen to be what they're looking for, and he or she has a show.
That's what they told me when I came here. Your dentist is going to have a headshot and resume.
Yeah, and I've, in fact, I know a guy who hired his gardener because he looked like art. But what they don't tell him is if you don't have training, you may get a show, but you're not going to keep it. But a lot of actors, I encounter them every single day. They were the prettiest people in their hometown. They were the jock, they were the whatever. They come out here, and sure enough, they're going to be on CW or one of these networks very soon. And then in about 10 years, you run into them at the car dealership, and there's nothing wrong with having 2 and 3 other jobs, but they're working there because they are no longer acting because they can't. They don't know what they're doing, and they stopped, and they never got drummed into them that if you keep training and if you keep acting wherever you can, whether it's in little theater, big theater, who cares? They didn't have that background. They just thought all they needed was a look, and they have no training and technique. And when that look goes, or when that look's no longer in fashion, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You got to care for that professional engine.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep greasing it. You got to keep it running. Otherwise, just like any other engine, it's gonna rust.
I'm going to steal that. I like that analogy a lot. I'm going to steal that. I will give you credit for it, but I'm going to say Jamie Jung says it's an engine, and you're right. You got to tune it up. You got to turbocharge it once in a while. Take it out for a run on the freeway.
Because personally, I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable here. I audition for co-stars, guest stars, sometimes series regulars here and there, but it's so sporadic that, and it's such a different audition experience and callback experience, watch and advise, all these different levels, that going in for something that isn't a student film or a commercial, it can be a little jarring. And so just to apply your training and your experience on the day and say, and have that confidence with all of that coming together at that one time for that one audition. That's, for me, that has been a lot of pressure that I've been putting on myself. And I've been trying to find out ways to keep that engine running so that it's not going through an unusually stressful experience.
Well, and that's completely understandable. Because many times, yes, you go in for an audition, and it's very possible that job could be the one that makes your career. That stupid job. Whereas yesterday, you were sitting in front of your TV watching, just having a normal life, and you get a phone call, you get an audition, and you go in the next day, and your life could do a complete 180 by the end of the week. But what we have to do, and that this is where this is a tremendously unrealistic world that doesn't happen that way on stage. Because even if you got a Broadway show, you still have 4-6 weeks of rehearsal. You still have out-of-town tryouts. You have a lot of stuff going on to sort of get you used to it. You're not, getting picked up by a limo 2 days later and being driven to the airport to fly to Istanbul, and have a, luxury hotel while you're on set filming for 6 months. So what I figured out a long time ago is, instead of looking at an audition as an audition, I look at them as performances. And what I mean is, and not even a performance per se for anybody but myself. This is a chance for me to experience an artistic expression with this particular role and to go in there and use it only as a platform for me to create. I'm not going to think about getting it. I'm not going to think about anything else about, oh my God, it's a guest star. Oh my God, it's a co-star. Oh my God, it's a series regular. But if I focus on, all I'm going to do is focus on the performing. I'm going to prep it. Am I giving it all the prep that I would if this were, something that I really wanted to explore independent of what the results in the recompense would be? If you go in there and you focus on, I'm just going to perform. I'm going to do my darn, I'm going to give them a great performance and kind of treat it like you would the theater when, all right, you may get applause when you leave the theater, but very rarely, unless you're one of those, and I hate doing that, who goes out afterwards and mills amongst the crowd, and even then people are very rarely going to say, oh, you sucked. They're going to say lovely things to you, but unless you really get a chance to get honest feedback, the show's over, you go home and you have no idea how you may have affected people. And I remember some years ago I did a show, and a friend told me there was a woman in the audience who was crying at the end. She turned to her friend and said, oh my God, that was, that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Well, that was lovely to hear. But if my friend hadn't been sitting next to her, I never would have heard that comment. I would have finished the show, gone home, had a bowl of popcorn and a beer, gone to bed, whatever, and gone on with life, having no idea that I affected somebody that way. So if you look at an audition that way, you give it your all. And I've always tell my students, if you don't feel embarrassed after an audition, you probably weren't as vulnerable as you should have been. If you don't feel tricked after an audition, that something happened you didn't expect, you probably weren't as free as you should have been. But if you only look at that and you don't look about anything else, of course we're human beings. You're still going to wonder about it, but it'll be less. You'll have less on your plate. All you have to worry about is just being creative and performing. Because then on any given day, you're going to be brilliant, but they're going to hire somebody else because they have lighter hair, they have darker hair, they're older, they're younger, they're the boyfriend of somebody, they're the girlfriend of somebody, they're taller, they're shorter. As once you start getting in an audition pattern, 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with how good you were. It has to do with a lot. So if that's the case, then let's make it something we enjoy doing. You're an actor, Jamie, because you like to act. You're an actor because that's the way you create. Well, make an audition simply another time when you create.
I'm going to listen back to this a lot.
Well, that's the only way, to be honest. I've gotten through it because, I have tons of friends who have awards and shows and this, that, and the other. And if I sit there and say, well, I'm as good as he is, I'm as good as she is, how come I don't have 5 Emmys on my desk right now? How come I'm not on my 6th TV series? I probably would be on at the bridge in Pasadena doing The Plunge. So, if you think of it that way.
They just updated that railing, so you're going to have to pick a different bridge, Kev.
I'm scrawny. I can climb. I'll climb over.
Okay.
But if I think about it as a chance to perform, then actually I get something out of the audition that I enjoy. I had a good time. I got to perform today. I got to create.
Right, and that's what I look for. But sometimes there's those auditions where the stress becomes overwhelming, and so you don't get to do what you want to do.
It's only overwhelming if you let it be. It really is. Believe it or not, I know that sounds platitudinous. I know that. But trust me, it's only overwhelming if you allow it to be. And that's because you're focusing on something other than your performance. Even if it's just, oh my God, the size of the role. I mean, I've seen you on stage. I've seen you do a huge role. So I don't think there's any TV audition you could ever get that would be as big as a full-length play. So it can't, if you do the creation and try not to worry about it. If you need to worry about it, say, I'm going to worry about it when I get in my car and drive home. Then at least you won't be as stressed during it. But I know that it's easier said than done. And it just takes years and years of practice. And you know what? Even years and years of practice, going to be times for me when I leave an audition and I say, damn it, I need this. I want this. So you just have to keep reminding yourself it's about the work. It's not about the job. Jobs are lovely, but unfortunately, we literally have no control unless you create your own content. And if you create your own content, hooray for Hollywood.
But this machine of the Hollywood film industry is such a looming thing. It tends to eclipse a lot of the artistry.
Oh, yes.
And it is something that I am actively struggling to find strategies to beat, to refocus my energies again on having that freedom of expression.
Well, remember, it's a business. And unfortunately, it's a business that used to be run by artists. United Artists, for example, was a company formed by artists. I don't think there's a single artist who's really the head of any major studio or even minor studio or film production company, unless it's, your own, like a Steven Spielberg. They're run by business people. They're run by business folks to make money. And that's just the reality of this business. So we have to figure out, okay, how do I fit into a business from an artistic point of view? And it's difficult. It really is. It's even if you start doing your own content, you got to figure out how to pay for it. You got to pay somebody at some point. So it's a weird dance that has to be done. And we, as the artists in this business, always get the short end of the stick because people want money, they want to make money, they don't want to pay out money, and many times to create decent art, you need to have decent funding. I don't think Picasso or Jackson Pollock or Rembrandt could have made the same effect on canvas if they'd only had crayons or if they'd only had, two colors. They had to buy enough paint or come up with enough paint to create what they created. On a much grander scale, that's what it's like making a movie. It's a great deal of money and people are terrified. The business guys are terrified that it's not going to make money. So they're terrified of artists because artists take chances and business people don't make money taking chances. So it's a weird dance. And you're right. It's hard to figure out. And you're smart. So I would imagine what you will probably end up doing is, creating like a spreadsheet of, okay, this is the part of my day that I need to devote to artistic endeavor. This is the part of the day I need to devote to business endeavor. This is the part of the day I need to devote to fundraising, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, you'll get it all done, but they're different worlds and they have to be approached differently.
Yes, you definitely have to really shut off those different parts of your life. Otherwise, your brain, your energies keep running and dissipating. There's that tendency I find since I moved here to Hollywood that your energies are going out in so many different directions. There is that tendency to allow things to dissipate or to have that anxiety. I haven't done enough today, or I can still do things today. And putting your foot down and saying, nope, that's the end of my artistic day. Now I'm getting to start my business day. Oh, my business day is ending. Now I got to start my social day, because we need to be those creatures that have a full life, because then we can bring those to our craft, but we can also be healthy human beings. But I wanted to get back to how you were starting to actually find your way within the Hollywood film industry. Did you move directly from ACT down to Los Angeles?
Yes, I did. I came here, and then I'd come for a summer, my senior year of college, to get the lay of the land, so to speak. And I just lived in Hollywood for one summer simply to figure out, okay, physically what's where, how do I get around physically, and just sort of get a feel for how the town ran, a feel for what it was like to go on an audition, what it was, how, where I went for casting notices. What was, in those days, there was a paper called the Drama Log, which was a simple little thing. And that's where non-union things were published. It's also where plays, auditions were published. So I wanted to figure out, okay, what the town was about, so that when I finally moved in to set up shop, I would kind of have a little bit of a running start. So when I came in, I knew, all right, I knew how to get headshots. I knew where to go to get headshots. I knew where to go. I knew how to approach agents. I knew that if you go to SAG, they would give you a list of agents. You could start approaching agents. And then they started making the rounds, going, here's my shot, here's my headshot, here's my resume. I hadn't done anything for a while then. My credits were, as a kid, they were older, but still, it meant something. They realized that, I knew what a camera lens was, so I probably would not look the other way if it were pointed at me, that kind of thing. But I just decided, okay, this is going to be my business now. And I knew that it would take a while. I didn't expect doors to open right away by any means. And I thought, to be honest, this is going to be kind of a fun and exciting time, because when you walk in and you're the new guy in the office, I don't care if you're 22 or 82, when you're the new guy in any office, there's a degree of excitement for a casting director. Wow, I don't know this actor. I mean, people complain, oh my God, I don't have any credits, nobody's going to want to see me. That's not necessarily the case. There's kind of an excitement when a new actor walks in anybody's office. Are they going to be any good? Are they not going to be any good? And if they're good, are they going to be unlike anybody we've seen before? Or are they going to be like so-and-so who's very successful? And I picked up on that immediately when I would go into any office. The kind of excitement of, oh, okay, we've seen people in the waiting room, and I would see people in the waiting room whose faces I recognized. Oh, they're on a show. He was on a show. But it didn't let it bug me, because I thought, you know what? They're not me. I also realized I was quirky. I was not your normal looking leading man guy by any means. So I figured my trek in Hollywood would kind of parallel my trek in college, which meant in college, I always did the off main stage shows, the black box shows. I did some main stage shows, but I was much more successful in doing the weirder shows, the experimental shows. And I thought, all right, chances are that's probably what I would do more here. I'm not going to do your leading man guy as much as I'm going to do, the next door neighbor or the funny guy or the weird guy. And I ended up getting a lot of, dangerous looking parts. I had a casting director say to me not that long ago, when I just look at your face, I get scared. And I thought, why? I'm a nice guy. She said, because it's angular and it just looks harsh. She said, that's why I brought you in for this, because you don't need to do anything. All I need to do is look at you. I thought, oh, okay, whatever. But I realized that was probably going to be the roles that I would be more successful at. So just go for it, submit myself everywhere, get into plays, and see how that went. And I started, to book things. And even to this day, there are years where I work all the time, and there are years where I can't get arrested. And that's just the way the business is. But I accepted the fact that if that's the way it is, I still enjoy being in it. I still enjoy creating. And if the business is not going to give me a chance to create, I got to create my own. I either have to go out and get in a play. I have to go out and find a friend who's doing a project. I got to write my own project, because if you can keep creating, then you're never going to get rusty. So I for some reason, that was easy for me to accept. I don't know. Maybe it's because my upbringing was very haphazard. I went to a lot of different schools and a lot of different locations. So I was not somebody who grew up in a very stable, I'm in the same town for 18 years, the same friends, the same everything. I was used to things changing. And I think that may have made it easier for me to adapt to this crazy business where nothing is the same from day to day. I don't know if that answers your question, but it just is easier, it seemed, for me to understand that, all right, this is going to be an up and down journey, and just deal with it.
Right. Were there any of those projects, though, within the Hollywood film industry that you felt started cementing you within the industry so that you could keep that one foot outside and continue to create, or to begin to start create writing or filming some of your own short films or new media projects?
Yeah, I did a series a number of years ago called Homefront, which I was the resident bigot, all-around son of a bitch. And I had a great time. And it was, that gave me a big foot in the door. And I got to the point where people on the street would either scowl at me. I had one woman throw my groceries at me in the store, the checker. She said, "You're a racist pig." And I said, no, I'm not. She said, well, you're on that TV show. I said, well, that's a show. But but in any event, it gave me enough funds at least to be able to say, okay, what else do I want to do? And it's funny, I was writing a novel at the time, a historical novel about some things that had happened in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've always been fascinated with Santa Fe. And it got to the people at Universal who decided they wanted to hire me as a writer to create a show, a cartoon. And I remember going to the meeting thinking, have you lost your mind? I don't know cartoon from Schmartoon. And the man said, no, it's the reason why I called you in. He said, I understand that you're not a cartoon writer, but we have an idea for a show that's based on history. And I liked the way you told this tale about history. You seem to be able to make history interesting. So then I got a job at Universal creating an animated series. So it's sort of this snowball. But that wasn't something that wasn't looked for. It sort of came out of nowhere. So I think Homefront allowed me to take several years and just sort of do what I want. I could act in the show if I wanted to or not. I could write if I wanted to or not. And that really, I got to say, it was a great show, and it really gave me a lot of blessings.
So in the slow periods, you do try to write, and
I try to write every day something. I'm working on a novel now that I'm going through the third rewrite process. I like to write. It's enjoyable. It's creative. I think it's important for any artist, I don't care what you do, to try to create something, if not every day, every week. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your field. If you're an actor, okay. I mean, yeah, you can memorize a monologue every week if you so choose. But I think the act of creating in general, no matter what it is, painting, dance, singing, ceramics, just creating helps fuel your creative spirit and also helps give you perspective and makes you a better artist. If you just sit around and wait for the phone to ring, or get upset that you don't have anything, that nobody's hiring me, and I don't have any auditions, all you're doing is sitting there. You're, as you pointed out, you're the engine with no maintenance. So that's another thing that sort of saved my sanity. If I could create, then if I went through a slow period where for some reason I wasn't booking anything, that didn't mean I was talentless. It just meant, okay, for some reason you're going through that. Big deal. But I created this over here. And so it made me feel more alive as an artist. If I can create something in some capacity. Not everybody can write. That's fine. So maybe you can sing. Maybe you can dance. Maybe you can paint. Maybe you can macrame. I don't know. Sew. If as long as you keep yourself creating and not let yourself get complacent.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening.